to go to ringer volume and do that. I hope it works. Don't make fun of my phone.
I'm thinking,
Time for a new one,
we
noise.
really don't need
Huh?
noise.
2024, let's get a new one for you.
I have two flip phones now, one for work and one for,
Oh, wow. I don't think,
well, at work, I sometimes have to call people in for reasons I don't want on my phone.
can you reach in with a can and a string?
Or I have to hand the phone to someone to call who I don't want their number on my phone, so.
Oh, goodness. All right. Mallory is feeling a little bit under the weather today, so Noise has agreed to run the meeting.
I was the last one that knew about this meeting, so I got stuck. That's how it
And
worked.
by agree, I mean I forced him.
Yes.
You're the vice chair.
We got it good. All right, sir, whenever you're ready.
You talking to me?
I am.
Oh, it's 1:30. We'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals to order on Wednesday, 27 March 2024 at 1:30. The first order would be the public hearing. Is there anybody here that, oh, I gotta read the public hearing.
Yes, you
Okay.
do.
Oh, it's a orange on the other side. Thank you. Public hearing on the variance request 24-000326. Applicant is requesting to reduce the flood opening requirements on a residential building. Request by 7 custom homes representing the property owner, property location 217 Teakwood.
Sure, and we
Oh,
do have the
okay,
representative of, I've discussed with him that he can wait and make his comments during the agenda item topic so that we can have a ongoing conversation about it, and he has agreed that that's probably the best for him.
Great. Next item would be discuss and take appropriate action on the meeting minutes from the last meeting on 17 October 2020. That long ago? 23.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Did everybody have a chance to look through those minutes? Anything that needs to be adjusted, any corrections to be made? Anybody wants to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mallory and a second from Paul. I know that in the past, we've kind of done all those in favor, but it is proper to do an actual roll call, so we'll do that.
Nicole, will you call the roll?
I sure will. Paul Ruff,
Aye.
Mallory Kalaya,
Yes.
Tina Grosclose,
Yes.
Stephanie Mustian. Is it?
Mustian.
Mustian,
Yes.
and Noise Livingston.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
I feel like we're on the Price is Right, like we're working together on this. All right, next item for consideration, discuss and take action on variance request 24-000326. Applicants requesting to reduce the flood opening requirement of a space above base flood elevation, but below design flood elevation. Applicant is 7 custom homes, property location 217 Teakwood.
Okay, and we have our applicant who's Kevin Lara, representing 7 Custom Homes, representing the property owner, and he'll come and explain kind of the situation for you guys.
And again, I know you guys have seen and heard these before, but Stephanie, this is your first official meeting, right?
Yes.
Are you familiar with, again, Nicole's our floodplain manager, so obviously she's is the right person to handle this, but understand design flood elevation relative to base flood elevation, all of that.
Actually, is it 2 feet?
We'll explain it as we go.
Okay.
But let's let him kind of
Okay.
explain the situation, and then I'll make sure to hit all the high points for you.
Cool. Alrighty, thank you. So I guess we can begin with kind of how we're in the situation. So during our form boards, we call in a survey, and while they shoot the elevations and correct elevations, that's kind of where we know we need to be at, which is above 10 foot. They were called in a little prematurely and the slab was not ready for it. So we didn't get the garage elevations. And here we are today, a finished house, which is below flood elevation. It sits at a 9.40. So I'm requesting that we reduce the vents required due to the fact that I have only 1 exterior wall and other walls, an interior wall that I cannot install a flood vent on. I have kind of pictures for reference. I don't know if I'm sure you all have the documents as well. But, so this is my variance request.
Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass you guys out a little packet that the city put together. And then I'll go over each page with you as we go. So that first couple of pages is just his application, and it basically just talks about exactly what he said here. This third page is the elevation certificate that was originally submitted with the house. And that's part of every new submittal. Every new permit application, they submit this application that explains how they're going to build this house. And what's important that you guys look at on this is the back side of that page. In that C section, C29. So that's what we check for there. That attached garage has to be 1 foot above base flood elevation. So Stephanie, just to kind of fill you in, the whole city is broken down into flood zones that have a certain height requirement. So specifically for this house, and you can see on the first page in that B9 section, they're in a flood zone called AE9. So FEMA says that every finished floor has to be built at least 9 feet. The city of Port Aransas has adopted 1 foot higher than that. So the city of Port Aransas says that everything has to be at 10 foot. Anything that's below 10 foot is allowed if it's parking, storage, or access to the building. But if it's below that 10 foot, it needs flood openings, which just means little openings in the wall that lets flood waters come in and out. So this house, when they submitted it, they were going to be above that base flood elevation. We have gotten into a number of situations in the past where people say they're going to be built above base flood elevation and then end up not. So a number of years ago, the city started requiring what's called form board surveys. So when you're building a house and you put the form boards up, we require another elevation be shot at that time to make sure that what they're planning on building is going to meet that. They did submit a form board survey, but like he said, everything was formed up except for the garage. So when the city got that form board survey in, and you guys can see that actually on the very next page, right in the center of that house, you can see form boards, 217 Teakwood Drive, elevation is 10.65. So when we see that come in, it's above that 10 foot. We didn't realize that they didn't have the garage formed up at that time. So we approved this form board survey, let them move forward, but they had incorrectly not included the garage.
Where's
So-
the garage?
So the
Like
garage
in this
is,
first picture?
it's right behind where that little open area. It's like to the rear of that little open area.
So the bottom right corner.
And actually I've got
On the Teakwood Drive.
I actually have the floor plan here for you guys that might help.
Once he's passing that around again,
Here?
just for additional information. So form board survey is the form boards, literally, just so everybody is clear that they use for the foundation. So the idea is you get that form board, once the surveyor indicates where that 10 foot has to be, that's kind of a pretty clear cut resource for that builder to use, for that. So anyway, just to be sure.
That's what they scrape the concrete off to, is that correct?
That's that's essentially where the surveyor says, points to the 10-foot mark on that form, so that when they pour, they know exactly where they have to be.
So if you turn this around, if you turn it into where you have the McIntyre on the top, that matches the form board survey that you're looking at. So that open area that's written on the form board survey is that carport, and then the garage is directly behind that.
Oh, okay. I'm looking down here.
So does that mean like the laundry room and that bathroom are all?
There's steps that's going up.
No, there's steps
Low.
that go up to that. So
Oh,
on the next page is the elevation certificate that they have to provide to us at the end of construction. So we require those 3 things: the elevation at the beginning, the form board survey in the middle, and the elevation survey, the certificate at the end. So when this elevation certificate came to me, this is when it was caught. If you look on the back page again,
Attached garage.
that C1 or I'm sorry, C2 number C, the attached garage is at 9.4. Which is not a problem, normally not a problem,
Cause it needs. to
because
be
you could
nice.
put the flood openings into it. So if it was at 10 foot, it would need no flood openings. Meets code, it's all good. If it's under 10 foot, it's still okay. It just needs the openings to let the floodwaters in and out. And if you remember from the last meeting, we had a similar situation where it was below the design flood elevation and it needed the openings. Kevin's in the same situation. Because of the design of this house, you can't put flood openings on two separate walls because he only has one wall that goes to the outside.
So I have a question. Does FEMA require the openings at 9 foot?
FEMA would require openings if it was under 9 foot. City of
Okay.
Port Aransas requires, because we have that
Between
additional
9
foot.
Or at 10 foot? even?
So the city of Port Aransas, we're like 1 foot higher than FEMA.
Mhm.
So if it was below 9 foot, FEMA would require openings. At 9.4, like they are, FEMA does not require openings. The city of Port Aransas requires
Okay.
openings.
Okay, that's.
So this variance is not asking for any variance from the FEMA requirements. It's just asking
It's
for a
just for
variance.
this same
city of Port
problem and we
Aransas.
kind of have been
This is
facing.
the same problem that we continue to face for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
They do have the ability to put in, 1 flood opening on the side, but they just don't have 2 separate walls.
So is it gonna matter having 1 foot? One opening?
And we kind of discussed this at the last meeting too. It's all, I mean, obviously it's better to go with the rules that are in place. And it's better to have 2, but they just don't have the ability to put 2 anywhere. You can't put them in the garage door because of windstorm requirements.
Mhm.
And you obviously don't have them go into your house.
If it
So
only
the idea
has
of one better than
one,
nothing is kind of the idea.
it's okay to have just one and it wouldn't flow out, so it just flow in and then.
Well, your garage door leaks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, really, I realize there's gonna be a lot of holes there, but I'm just like kind of wondering what the.
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
part of part of it is the opening size and it is to flow in and out. But again, in a flood event, water's gonna flow in both of them
Yeah.
and flow out both of them.
Right.
It's a matter of how big an area that is for it to flow. So
It's just he needs to be able
it,
to.
yeah, it's not as much, but you also have, you also don't, because of the design, you have 3 other structural walls, so you don't have it's not quite as vulnerable as where you had 2 exterior walls, for example.
Right.
Cause you got all the house supporting the other 3 walls, so.
Right, yeah.
So we're not engineers, but again, I think the mutual thought was, okay, 1 is still better than none at all.
What are the dimensions on the flood openings?
so that's what I was just gonna go over. So anytime you have to have flood openings, so if you've got a garage that's 400 square feet, you have to have 400 square inches of flood opening. So for every square foot of space,
Enclosed.
enclosed space you have to have 1 square inch of flood openings. And the requirement is that be on 2 separate walls. Doesn't have to be opposite walls, just has to be 2 different walls. And that's for hydrostatic pressures.
I was just wondering, cause like I don't have 2 walls.
Right.
Side walls.
And I just listened to the meeting that we had last time, and that's exactly what you said at the
Oh,
last
yeah.
meeting
I was
too.
like- I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, I don't
Right.
have. I guess that might be the same as a lot of people probably have that.
A
Well,
lot.
and you used to hear the term breakaway walls, and so, those walls were actually designed. Well, or were intended to be designed to do just that. They weren't structural, so if the floodwaters came in, those walls would break away and not affect the other structural integrity of the rest of the house. The vents are just a kind of a modern version to try to prevent that from happening and not have to have the walls break away. Water can come in and go out without breaking those walls loose.
Yeah.
So in this situation, city staff, our opinion is that doesn't create a life safety issue. We really don't see a strong reason to oppose.
We're not
the
gonna get
variance.
dinged by FEMA.
Yeah.
And our takeaway is, our form board survey worked for the most part,
Mhm.
but not for the entirety because again, but again, our takeaway now is that, yeah,
And
we need
so-
to make sure that.
It's
form board-
interesting that they
for
do
the whole
the,
thing.
they do that without the whole entire job being done.
Right, and that's
was
a
in-
conversation I'm gonna have with our surveyors on how to prevent that. It might be that we have to have, instead of just the form board survey, we might have to require another elevation certificate. Just a little bit more money, but they would have to fill in those blanks of what the garage is gonna be, what, what a number of things is gonna be. So moving forward, we're still, every variance that we have, we say, this is how we're gonna correct this and hopefully not have this issue again. These
Actually,
flood-
for how many are being built, this is not,
It's
it's not
this
a
is-
whole lot.
This is really such a relatively low, this is a percentage of a 1% of the houses that are being built.
Right.
We are catching a number of issues at the form board survey, so that policy that we put into place a number of years ago has really done its job. There's just, some situations that happen that
Which made our job easier.
much easier.
Mhm.
And I'm working towards a path to kind of make that even more easy. There are a number of cities that don't take floodplain variances to their Board of Adjustments. They kind of handle that administratively through their floodplain manager. So we're looking into that. That's a process that obviously has to be approved by city council, but that's kind of the road we're trying to head down. So hopefully you guys won't see many of these
And the
variances.
good news is, I think most of the ones we've seen haven't been FEMA violations.
Right.
Correct.
Like I
We
said.
haven't
the-
seen any FEMA violations.
So that's the good news,
Yeah.
if there's any good news. So the houses are high enough, they just aren't high enough. They want that additional height the city wants for that abundance of protection.
But living space always is.
Yep.
It's just this garage space that we're
Yeah,
talking about. So
yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the requirement for, are we still maintaining the foot to inches requirement for this with the one opening or?
for
asking them to
this,
do
we're
two,
definitely
or-
not. They would be reducing, so that's what the variance actually is requesting to reduce the flood opening requirement.
And it doesn't make sense to do two on the same wall just to cover that base?
You guys can do what you want to do. What we've done in the past with these is just reduce the flood opening requirement. The two openings on two separate walls is really mostly for the hydrostatic pressure, given the design of the house. I'm not an engineer, but I would say that probably doesn't make a big difference in this situation. But if you guys wanted him to put another flood vent in, you're more than willing to, more than welcome to make that a requirement. Or just allow the one.
What would the size requirements be if we kept that? How big of openings do you have?
So I don't know the exact openings, but I know they're FEMA approved vents. I gotta look into that. I probably should have came with that information.
That's okay.
Um,
What's the square footage of the garage? You don't know?
Not off
okay.
the top of my head,
No worries.
so I can probably figure that out for you here shortly. though.
It's 260 square feet.
Yeah.
Which means that the flood vent that he has is probably gonna be good for about 200 square feet. 200 to 250 square feet. So a second one is more than doubling what he would, if the one flood vent covers 250 square feet, his garage is only 260 square feet. Another flood vent really doesn't offer him much more protection. It just hits that checkbox of having two.
I think the two on opposite walls goal is water in, air out. Something like that. When you say hydrostatic pressure, it's something in and something out at the same time. Two on the same wall is not necessarily something in and something out at the same time. You got water coming in both. But a lot of air is going out that garage door, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's on rollers.
It's my recommendation that I don't really think a second one on the same wall is gonna offer anything extra, as far as protection to the house. Unless there's more discussion.
Put a lot of work into this.
Well, I make a motion, we give him the variance.
Second. We're looking at you, newbie.
I second.
Will you say I second?
Oh, I thought you said, I'll second your second.
There you go.
He was asking.
Asking for a second.
This is like prison. You're the fish.
Now they're gonna make you do it. Like,
Don't put her on
Wait,
the
So
spot.
we have a motion and a second.
Right. We have a motion from Mallory and a second from Stephanie. So we'll go Paul,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Stephanie? Mallory
Yes.
and Noise?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carries. Variance is granted.
Alrighty, thank y'all.
Is there any other further business we need to discuss?
I believe Mallory has something
I
to say.
I am resigning as chair. So we need to pick another chair.
But we will do that at the next meeting
Will
because
we
that
do
has to be an
that?
official
Okay.
agenda item.
Okay.
So you guys start, everybody has to be at the next meeting or else you get to be the chair. And everybody
I
start thinking
found that
about,
out the hard way today.
who you want that to be.
think I'm looking at it right now. It's a cold, cruel world. Come on. Anything else?
Sure.
Okay, it's about 10 till 2.
Oh,
What?
I'll talk to them about that offline afterwards.
Okay, so we don't need it. We don't have to sign anything?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
That's only when there's an order, for a substantial damaged building.
So meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.
I have a question for you after you talk to Carl.
Sure, let
Good turn, though.
turn this recording off.
The house.
So welcome to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
Yeah, sorry, it's,
Yeah, we need to get
noise